I saw something sticking out from the middle of his foot, and his big toenail had grown over and under his foot and had poked through the skin from the bottom and sticking up from the middle of the foot. Hi, I'm Abby.
Hi, I'm Terry.
Today we're going to talk about some foot doctor horror stories.
Okay, my horror story came in about 1993. I was a residency director at the time, and we had a patient who had some rather extensive foot and ankle surgery done. We had placed him in a plaster of Paris cast, which is like the white cast material. Nowadays we use fiberglass. And he came in for his first post-op visit, and I looked at his leg and his cast, and it was basically melted. And I came over and I said, "What happened?" And he said, well, he was feeling pretty good. He didn't use the crutches as much as he should have, and he went swimming in the ocean the day before. This is just a few days after his surgery. So needless to say, we cut away the plaster cast, and he had a rather swollen and red and infected surgical sites, and had to admit him to the hospital, and what was supposed to be something clean, neat, and simple became a disaster.
So one of my horror stories has to do with this gentleman who was a police officer who apparently had gone through a very horrible divorce, and for years he was not looking into meeting anyone. Finally, he decided that he wanted to meet someone that would be special in his life. He loved to walk on the beach bare feet and take strolls with whomever was going to be his significant other. The day I saw this gentleman, he had come in because apparently his chief complaint was very sensitive toes. And so I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. I didn't know what had happened. I assumed that because he was a police officer, he had just been in boots all day long. He had blisters or something like that. And when I walked into the door, the smell in that room was nauseating. And when I saw his feet, and because when I walk into the room, I see my patient's feet first, all I saw was this disgustingly red feet that had pus oozing out of every single toe, and they were all infected, and some of them were even bleeding. And I asked him what happened. He very nonchalantly said, "I was so embarrassed about my nails because I had fungus on my nails, and I was so looking forward to take my new girlfriend out on the beach and walk bare feet in the sand, that one night I just decided that because I didn't have time to go see a doctor, to take a whole bottle of tequila, drink it all by myself, and decided to go sit in my tub and use a wire cutter, and I pulled every single toenail without any other means of anesthetizing my toes." Basically, he didn't think anything of it, and he pulled all of his nails and thought just to take a bath, and went ahead the next morning and wrapped every single toe in toilet paper and put his boots on and basically went to work. By that afternoon, he had a full-blown cellulitis with infection running up his toes all the way to the ankle. And that's when he decided to come in. Basically, what we had to do was put him on several weeks of antibiotics, gave him a note that he should not be wearing his boots and he should just do desk work for a while until the infection is all cleared up. And he healed finally, and he ended up not having beautiful looking nails, but he ended up taking his stroll on the beach with his girlfriend without being embarrassed, because he ended up realizing that having fungal nails is not that as disgusting as he thought it was going to be.
Well, this is not necessarily foot related. However, I had a patient come into the office a number of years ago. The staff brought him from the reception area into the examination room. As I'm walking and pick up the routing paper, find out who the patient is, and head towards the door, there was just something that didn't seem right, didn't smell right. So I walked to the door. It was quite obvious that the patient had lost control of their
Bowels.
Pretty much, yeah. Control of the bowels, and it was a rather large mess. Gave him as much dignity as possible in a situation like that. He was an elderly man, and was very thankful. And we got them all put back together again. I did what needed to be done. After he left, unfortunately, this room had to be quarantined for the most part because the smell didn't go away for several days, no matter what we did. So whatever he ate stayed in the room for a while.
In another instance, I was told that I have a couple in a room where the wife had filled out the paperwork for the husband stating that he scratches her in bed. So before going into the room, I assumed that because most of our patients, especially the ones that are elderly, come in because they can't reach their feet, because they have very thick, deformed, rough, flaky nails, that she was basically concerned about the fact that her husband's nails were too long and they couldn't get them, treated, or he couldn't have pedicures. Whatever the reason was, I just made an assumption that it had something to do with his nails being too long. He was also diabetic, and that was part of the information that I was given before going in. So I again assumed that it's just a simple cutting of the nails and talking to the patient about having their nails treated by a professional and come in on a regular basis. However, when I opened the door and I walked into the room, I was just like Terry was talking about his patient, smacked in the nose with a smell of this infected foot that he came in with. And what was very bizarre was the fact that I saw something sticking out from the middle of his foot that looked like a thorn or some foreign object. When I got closer and I actually looked at his foot, which was also almost all black because he had gangrene set in, apparently nobody had cut his nails in years, and his big toenail had grown over and under his foot and had poked through the skin from the bottom and sticking up from the middle of the foot, and it was dripping pus and a little bit of some gooey greenish kind of a liquid. His wife didn't have any idea what this was all about. She just cared about the scratching in bed. And when I asked him if it hurt, he just said no. And because he's diabetic, he basically had no feelings in that foot. And she just asked me if I just could cut the nail and let them go. I unfortunately had to tell her that this is not something we could treat, that he most probably will have to have his leg amputated, which unfortunately he did. We had to take him to the ER, admit him, and end up seeing a surgeon who actually amputated his leg below the knee. So the moral of these stories that we just told you is that we're hoping none of you, no matter what the problem is, how simple you think it is, just don't try to diagnose it and treat it yourself with home remedies. Just come in. We promise we will get rid of the problem as quickly as we can. So please go see a foot doctor instead of treating it yourself.